I knew it was becoming a problem about the time that I was ready to get married, and I was starting to hide my finances from my fiance,
Mm.
and I was making up excuses and reasons as to why the money that I was making wasn't matching the money that I had.
What was it like for you to come to that realization?
It was tough because at that point, the addiction had taken over. So even though I had come to terms with it and knew that it was a problem, the addiction was still running the show.
Mm.
So it was constantly trying to make up excuses, even though it's kind of like you have the two voices on your shoulder. And unfortunately, the gambling voice was a lot stronger.
Oh. What impact did it have on your life?
It had a great impact on my life. Constantly being stressed. Always trying to, it's like a house of cards, trying to remember what lie I told this person or what lie I told that person, and does the first person know the lie that I told the second person, and just the stress it put on my marriage and my family, both my wife's family as well as my family. And for a while there, it was very, very bad, and to the point where I was not living at home because the addiction had gotten so bad.
And what eventually helped?
I finally hit rock bottom. Unfortunately, I had become very depressed. I had become very suicidal. I did not want to be around anymore. And the police took me into custody, and I was taken to the hospital where they said that I did not fit the criteria for someone who needed to be watched. So at that point, I just felt like I'd lost all hope, and my wife had decided to talk to me and say, "Listen, I have some family members who had gone through a treatment center, and they're willing to take you." And I went there during COVID, and it probably saved my life because it allowed me to be in a place for 4 months without any electronic devices, and it allowed my brain to have a hard reset and create pathways and to actually deal with my addiction.
What do you want to share your story and your experience?
I want to share my story because I feel like there's a lot of people out there like me who the stigma of, because there's no physical like ailment, like when a person is drunk or a person is on something, you can see that there's something wrong with them. But unfortunately, with gambling addiction, it's all in your mind. So there is no physical signs to show that there is a problem. And I think that is one of the biggest issues is people kind of get this uh look about them that, you know what, how can this person have a problem when there's no signs?
Hmm.
And I feel like if I'm able to tell my story and show that it can happen to anyone, then maybe people will start to talk about it. And I also feel like we need to have more residential treatment centers for just gambling. Because at this time, I believe there are no residential treatment centers in BC for just gambling.
How are you doing now? How are you coping now?
I'm doing really well. I'm 3.5 years, coming up on 4 years since I went into the treatment center, and I haven't placed a bet. And I think one of the things the government also really needs to focus on is, yes, getting help for the actual gambler is great, but also we need to provide more support for the affected others, like my wife or my son
Mm.
or the other people who are affected by this. Because unfortunately, like myself, I went to a treatment center. I was able to deal with all of my emotions and deal with all of my baggage. But I come home to my wife and my
Mm.
son, and they are still that far behind me